Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry that I haven't had a new video in a little while. I have been traveling to Europe, and so today I wanted to start sharing the first of what I'm hoping is going to be many videos about my experience so that I can help you with your vacation to Europe. So to kick all of this off, today I want to talk to you about Rome. And here are my top tips for traveling to Rome that is different from what you're hearing from the other people. In fact, some of the other videos got it dead wrong. I did so much research on YouTube before I went to Rome so that I could be prepared for anything that came up. And a lot of what I found on YouTube is actually not correct at all, is maybe changed since they were there last. And so these are my top tips for traveling to Rome as it stands as of 2022. And I just traveled there in June. So you ready? Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, if you are traveling to Rome, chances are you are going in the summer, though that's not always the case. But if you are going in the summer, just know it is hot, really freaking hot. So my number one tip to know is when you go exploring in Rome, go as early as you possibly can go. Now, things won't necessarily be open in regard to restaurants and stores. Those usually don't open until a little bit later in the day, such as if you're going for lunch, it won't open until closer to noon. Some of the stores probably open maybe around 10, 11, sometimes even noon as well. But what you're wanting to see by going early is you're wanting to get there, A, ahead of the heat, and B, ahead of the crowds. So when we went exploring in Rome the first few days, we went early. I would say maybe 8:30 in the morning. And this allowed for zero crowds, as you can see. The weather, although it was still pretty warm at that time in the morning, was far more tolerable. So we went out early, we went exploring, we saw the outside of many things. Some museums and things are open at that time. So we were able to go into a few of those things, not everything, but a few. And so this was the perfect time to go start to explore all of those historical landmarks that you go to Rome to see. Now, when it started to get hot, we went back to our hotel to relax in the air conditioning and take a break because it is really freaking hot, if I haven't said that already. And then once we had a break, then we went back out. But here's the difference. When we went back out at about noon or so, or a little bit after, there was a whole new world. It was absolutely packed. Shoulder to shoulder, you could hardly get by. It was a lot hotter, so we lasted far less in getting to be able to walk around and explore. I highly recommend going early when you're exploring Rome. Now, this leads me into the next thing on that hot equation, and that is there's not a lot of air conditioning in Rome. There typically is in your hotel, especially if you're staying in a good hotel, you will have air conditioning. But most of the places that we encountered, including restaurants, stores, a lot of the museums and such, have zero air conditioning. So just know that when you're going to some of these places, it's going to be a bit toasty. And a lot of the restaurants have seating out in the walkways, and they do have, some of them have the misting systems to help cool it down. Some of them have fans, but it is something that will definitely be on your radar. In fact, there were times when we specifically picked a restaurant because it had AC, and that was very hard to find. Most of them do not. So just know that going, plan your day around that, and just be willing to put up with it being a wee bit warm when you're dining, but also in those restaurants and things, and planned trips back to your hotel to rest, or find those places that do have AC if you need to cool down a bit. Speaking of being hot, one of the coolest things that Rome has to offer when you're in city center are water fountains. Literally in the middle of the street, you'll have just a big pipe leading out and pouring water constantly. It's constantly pouring from, I believe, the aqueduct system. And when the water is clean and safe to drink, it is cold. I couldn't believe it. The water coming out of the ground, I thought for sure would be at least room temperature, but it is nice and cold and delicious, and it's amazing. So when you go to Rome, all you need to do is bring your water bottle, or if you got a bottle of water at one of the local stores, keep the empty, because as you're walking around Rome, those water fountains are everywhere, and it is plenty free, open, ready to drink, and you can fill it up at any time. All right, speaking of walking around Rome, just know that they are not regular paved streets when you're in city center. When you're in that middle city center area, especially when you're closest to the main attractions, Colosseum, Pantheon, Trevi Fountain, things of that nature, it is cobblestone. And there is actually an area over by the Colosseum that is not even cobblestone. It's large boulders set into the ground, and you want to pay attention when you're walking on them, because even with tennis shoes or flat shoes, with trainers, they can turn an ankle really easily. So just know that if you are going to be going sightseeing or even going out to dinner in the evening in Rome, make sure you wear the right footwear for that, because if you're trying to wear heels, it's going to get real tricky on the cobblestones unless you're wearing maybe some wedges or something like that. So just know that that's going to be a problem or a potential problem. And if you have mobility issues, it could be a larger problem. So you're going to want to research those areas before you go to make sure, if you have somebody in a wheelchair or with mobility issues, that there are ways to get into that without hurting yourselves. Because truly, if you're in city center of Rome, it is mostly cobblestones and such. Unless you're actually driving on the main street, then that's just a regular paved street. But walking around, be prepared and you'll be good to go. Next is the language. So when I go to any place, I like to learn at least a few keywords in that language in order to help me get around in that new place, in that new foreign place. Things like thank you, hello, excuse me, things of that nature usually are very, very helpful, particularly like, for instance, when I went to Japan, I needed it because not everybody spoke English there. But in Rome and in most European cities that are main tourist areas. Now, if you go away to a small town, this is not the case. But if you're going to main tourist areas like Rome, chances are most people speak English. There might be some cases, like for instance, I had to go to a pharmacy and they didn't speak English. So we did a lot of miming. I knew a tiny bit of Italian, but I was able to point and mime and be able to get what I needed at the pharmacy. But in general, restaurants, stores, hotels, a lot of them do speak English. I actually got away with a lot more English than I thought I would need. I thought I would need more Italian than I did. And speaking of Rome, I heard North American English and UK English as well, more than I heard Italian, more than I heard any other language, actually. I swear to you, I heard English far more than anybody else, usually North American English. And so just know that going in, if you do speak English, there's really not a concern if you're going to one of the main cities. I still highly recommend you learning some of the basic Italian language, basic Italian words such as thank you and hello. And like I said before, because it's common courtesy, you don't want to assume everybody speaks English. Also knowing how to say, do you speak English? Because that's a far more polite way than just launching in with English and assuming they know. But what I found is most places we went, I tried to start with Italian, but they knew immediately that we were English speakers and launched into English before I even had a chance to try the language. And so, just know that if you don't know any Italian, it's not a problem. And in fact, Rome was just the beginning of a whole European tour that we did, or a Mediterranean tour that we did. And every place we went, again, that's a big tourist area, English. I hardly ever had to use Italian at all. So just know that it's not a problem. Language is not a problem, but learning those few things will be helpful. Next thing I want to talk to you about is food. Now, one of the things I was dreaming about when I went to Rome or Italy in general was the food. I was dreaming about the food because the food has to be extraordinary, right? And it is. But what I found is a lot of the places that we went were not much better than what we get back home in America. It was pretty similar in a lot of ways. The pizza was pretty similar in a lot of ways, a lot of the other food. But I was in, again, city center. So most of the places that I went to were touristy places. And one of the things, if you're doing a lot of research on Rome before you go, is you will hear people tell you to get away from the tourist areas when you're wanting to enjoy the food, when you're wanting to get really good, authentic food. When you get away, then the prices are a little less and the food quality is better and the experience is a bit better. But when you're in city center, it is really, really hard to get away, like really hard. One of the things in Rome is there's a lot of little alleyways leading to and fro places. And for instance, one of the alleys we were walking around, I felt like I was running the gauntlet. There were restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, and it had the people in the front trying to get your attention, having you come into their restaurant. It had English speaking menus. And these are all of the red flags people tell you about to try to avoid. But that was most of what I could find. I was trying so hard to find things that didn't have that didn't have all of those red flags they tell you about on the YouTube videos and in travel guides. I tried in city center and I had the hardest time. So most of the time when we were in city center, we ended up eating at those touristy places because we were hot and tired and hungry. And I just didn't want to spend hours trying to find something that wasn't that touristy place. Now, you could avoid that probably ahead of time by doing some research ahead of time and finding those restaurants ahead of time. Or you could just give up and go to those places, but just know it's pretty standard food, kind of what you would get in America. I mean, it was okay. It was good, but it wasn't spectacular. The other thing you could do is look for the restaurants that have lines. Lines are the key. If they have a line, then their food is typically better than the average Joe. If they're empty, don't go there. Don't go there. If it's empty, there's a reason it's empty, unless it's just open and nobody's there yet. But the key with food in Italy is look for the lines. If you can find a restaurant that has lines, chances are they're going to be good. On that note, if you are in city center, one of the best places that I recommend you go to is Trastevere, which is a neighborhood just on the other side of the river that is phenomenal for food, and they have different museums and shops and things there. Coolest neighborhood ever. Highly recommend it. And the place that I most recommend is a restaurant called Nonarella. Now, this is a place that has lines all the time. No matter what, they always have a line, but it's worth it. Even if you're in line for an hour, 2 hours, doesn't matter. It is worth it. And when you go, I highly recommend the lasagna. I don't care if you don't like lasagna. I don't care if you think it's not your favorite food and you want to get Roman carbonara. I'm telling you, get the lasagna. The lasagna is the stuff dreams are made of. It is the absolute best thing I've ever put in my mouth, hands down. So go to Nonarella and get the lasagna. I'm telling you, do it, do it, do it. It's in the Trastevere and well worth it. If you are going, if this is one of your first times going to Rome and you're wanting to see all of the basic sites, you're wanting to see the Colosseum and the Pantheon and Vatican, or all of the typical sites you go to see in Rome, I highly recommend getting a hotel in city center. It is highly walkable. And so it is far more convenient to have a hotel there and be able to easily walk around to all of those tourist destinations. However, if you are wanting to save a little bit of money, or if you've been to Rome before and you know the places you want to go and it doesn't matter if you're in city center, I highly recommend Trastevere. I can't say it, Trastevere, which is that neighborhood just across the river. That is a fantastic neighborhood. But if you're looking for something convenient and easy and be able to just leave in the morning and walk everywhere you want to go, city center is a great place to stay. The hotel that I highly recommend that we stayed at is the Damaso Hotel, or also called Hotel Damaso. And I will leave a link for this below. This is only a 3-star hotel, but I felt like it could have been 4 stars in America. It had free breakfast every morning. It had a rooftop bar in the evening. It was very comfortable, had air conditioning. The hotel staff and the concierge were completely just super helpful, helped with reservations, helped with guidance and everything else. It was a fantastic hotel and one that I very, very highly recommend. It is very close to the Pantheon, not too far from Trevi Fountain, and about 20 minutes or so a walk to the Colosseum, and literally right across the river from Trastevere. All right, my next tip is regarding money. Now, most places take credit card. So that is always a fallback and always something you can find anywhere in the main cities like Rome. Now, if you travel outside into smaller areas, chances are there'll be fewer places that take credit card. But in the big cities like Rome, there is a lot of credit card. However, I found myself using far more cash, because when I was just buying something like a gelato, or when I went to the pharmacy and needed to buy some medicine, or even just leaving tip at a restaurant, I found it easier to deal with cash. So I highly recommend at least having some euros on you, because you never know when it's just easier, especially if you're getting like a bottle of water or something at a store. It's far easier just to pay with cash than to worry about whether or not they take credit card. And there were the occasional people that didn't speak English. And so it's far easier to look at the cash register, know that it's 20 euro, not worry about whether you know how to say 20 euro in Italy, and just give them a 20 euro. So I do recommend highly having some cash available to you. And then cards, of course, are pretty well taken in most of Rome. One of the other things, if you're coming to Rome and you want to go see some of those big sites, especially the Colosseum or the Vatican, I highly recommend getting tickets in advance. So I purposely did not buy tickets in advance because the party that I was traveling with were not interested in any kind of guided tours. They didn't want any agendas. They wanted to be able to wake up in the morning and decide what they wanted to see. So I didn't buy any tickets. Well, the day that we decided we wanted to walk down and see the Colosseum, when we got there, we really wanted to go inside. But by then, all the tickets were sold out. So if you think there's even an inkling of a chance that you want to go into those things, those can easily be found on websites, whether it is the Colosseum has their own website where you can purchase it directly, or if you do it through a group such as Viator, which sells tours and packages and things of that nature, or just the tickets themselves. If you are going to do any of those things, I highly recommend you purchase them ahead of time. If you are coming specifically from North America, it is quite a jaunt and it is quite a difference in the time zone. Don't plan anything for the first day or two. Keep it super open, super loose. So by the time you got there, you're going to be exhausted and probably starving. So don't plan anything that first day so that you could just go eat, enjoy, get acclimated. And if it's arriving in the evening, ideally, go to bed, because that's all you're going to want to do. The next day, I also don't recommend planning anything, because chances are if you get there and can go to bed in a somewhat evening time, you're going to sleep in late. So again, especially if you're coming from far, if you're coming from North America, South America, highly recommend don't plan anything the first night, especially, but also maybe that first day, keep it very open. So that way you have a chance to acclimate before you dive in with all of the tours and sightseeing and everything else that you want to do. Driving in Rome is an adventure. When we arrived in Rome, we arrived at FCO and got a shuttle into city center. And it was kind of like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. We were in a shuttle. I was facing backwards and half of our party was facing forward, but I was watching all the people facing forward and seeing the expressions on their faces. And every once in a while they would grab, the sides or the handles. It was an adventure. So just know that they know what they're doing and know that they're professionals and will get you there. And you should be safe and everything's fine. But just know it's going to be a bit of a wild ride. And on that note, make sure if you do book a shuttle or a driver or something along those lines, to pick somebody who has good ratings. I personally booked our travel through our hotel. So if you're staying at Hotel Damaso, they can arrange a driver for you to pick you up at the airport. Prior to that, before I knew that they offered that, I actually booked it through Viator, where I like being able to book shuttles there because they give you reviews. So you can see exactly what you're getting into and not choosing one of the drivers that's maybe a little bit more questionable. Also, you can pick drivers that know English. So that makes it a little easier when you're needing to communicate and make sure they understand where it is that you're going. Now, when you are deciding what it is that you want to do while you're in Rome, it is best, and I highly recommend you do a little bit of research before you go, because Rome has too much to do. There is far too many things for you to see and do, especially if you're only going for a few days. So it's really good if you do a little bit of research ahead of time and know, okay, I want to see the Pantheon, the Colosseum, the Vatican, and bleh, whatever it is. Just kind of have a few of those thoughts in your head, because you might get there, if you're the kind of person that doesn't plan anything, and get there the first day and go, well, gee, I don't know what we should do today. There's so many things we should do. Where should we start? I don't know. So if you can do a little research ahead of time, it will make it a little easier. And then you can hit those must-sees. And then if you have some extra time after that, you can explore to your heart's content, but it's good to know a few of the must-sees. Also on that note, by knowing the must-sees, you know what you need to have or bring or do. For instance, in Rome, if you're going into a cathedral, church, museum, they have dress codes. They usually want your shoulders covered, no tank tops. For women, they want your something down to your knees, shorts, skirt, whatever. They don't want it above your knees. For men, I can't remember, it was a down to your knees as well, but they're very conservative and they have conservative rules for your dress. In fact, there are even signs out front that let you know if it is a location that is has a dress code, and some restaurants will even have a dress code. So by knowing ahead of time what it is you want to see and do, or if you think there's a chance you might want to go to one of those places, make sure you bring something that is of the more conservative dress so that you will be allowed to go into those places. I didn't go to any public restrooms, but the people I was traveling with did. And there's a really weird, interesting thing. A lot of the bathrooms don't have toilet seats. So I was traveling with my kids, my adult kids, and they went to the bathroom at the restaurant and came back laughing hysterically because there was no toilet seat on the toilets. Obviously in the hotel was a normal toilet and even a bidet, but in public, you're not really sure what you might run into. And that might be one of the things. There might not be a seat on the toilet, but also you might need some euros, some spare change, because some of the public toilets you have to pay to use. We just ended up going to a restaurant, using the restroom at the restaurant. If we were out in public and needing to use the bathroom, of course, you should buy something first, but always have a few euros on you in case you have to use the public bathroom, and just know it might be a little bit different of an experience. One of the other things I heard about, but I didn't see, is sometimes you walk into the main bathroom and there's the sink area, which is all genders. And then you have men's and women's off to the side. So just know that if you walk in and see the opposite gender standing there, doesn't mean you walked into the wrong restroom. Just know that that might be a situation as well, where the wash area is separate from the actual toilet area, and perfectly normal and perfectly fine. And then my final recommendation in Rome is back to the neighborhood of Trastevere. There is a river walk. It reminds me of like a nighttime farmer's market shop area. It is along the river, and they have outdoor tents with restaurants, stores. They even have some carnival games that people can play. And it's just a one strip of the river right by Trastevere, on the Trastevere side of the river. And it was so much fun. We went down there, we had some dinner, we had some drinks, we walked around, did some shopping, played some games. It was so much fun. So if you find yourself in or around that area, and where I stayed at Hotel Tommaso, it was on that side, on the Trastevere side, I highly recommend taking a look at that. And that actually wasn't my final tip. I have one bonus tip. I felt extremely safe in Rome, extremely safe. And I watched all these videos, and they were talking about different scams you have to watch out for, and pickpocketers and things like that. And yeah, I'm sure that existed, but when I was there, I didn't experience any of it. We were out late at night eating dinner, and I still never ran into any of those people. So be mindful of it, but I don't think it's as prevalent as it's been made to seem. And I guess it just depends on where you are, but I never experienced any of it. But I felt very safe traveling in Rome and walking around, and we never had any problems whatsoever. So next, if you're planning that trip to Rome or anywhere in Europe, take a look at this video here, which will help you to plan that trip in the best possible way, the way that the professionals do. And other than that, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Stay tuned for our next Mediterranean and European video, which hopefully will be coming soon. And I will see you on that next video. Thanks so much for stopping by. Take care. Bye-bye.